Hello, all. My name is Fearless, and to my left is my buddy Matt. And this is a different view where we are two philosophers talking about a whole litany of different things. Uh, Last week I had this epiphany to talk about ancient law, and today we're going to talk about the differences as well as some of the similarities that the Ten Commandments have versus the 42 laws of Ma'at. Now, a lot of people probably don't know what the 42 laws of Ma'at are, but they are an Egyptian negative, what do they call it?
Negative confessions.
Negative confessions. So if the Ten Commandments that were given to Moses on the hill or the mountaintop of Mount Sinai says, thou shalt not do this, and thou shalt not do that. And it's kind of yelling these things at you to not do these things. The 42 laws of Ma'at are way more calmer. They're more of a peaceful coexistence among the people. So it's instead of thou shalt not kill, it's I haven't killed anybody. Instead of thou shalt not bear false witness, the Egyptian said, I haven't been dishonest.
Yeah,
I haven't lied to anybody.
like
So
you're supposed to look back once you die, right? And when your heart's being weighed on
yeah,
the scales with a feather and all that.
on the feather,
And
yeah.
if you can say all these 42 things, I never killed anyone, I never made anybody cry,
Cry,
I never,
right, which is
yeah, I
kind
never
of right.
disrespected the God, all
Not
this
at all,
stuff.
not at all.
Then now your heart is supposed to be light enough to pass, right?
To
So
pass through, yeah. But I like that. So when we were talking about this, I like some of the stuff that you had talked about, the Ten Commandments, kind of like that screaming type of thing, as opposed to the 42 laws, where it's like more of a personal inner reflection, like you said before,
yeah,
of that this is kind of not only for myself, but for those in my tribe as well. And the one thing that I want to bring up to at least to the viewers is that in the Bible it states that in Acts 17, 22 to 25, is that Moses was learned in all wisdom of the Egyptians.
he's like
So
an
he would have
Egyptologist.
known about the 42 laws of Ma'at because they pre-existed Moses 1,000 years before him. So he would have already known about these things. So it's always been kind of like a question to me, which is number one, how is it that we know more about the Ten Commandments than we do the 42 laws? But then it also evokes the question, uh, what happened to the 42 uh, confessions that we don't really utilize them today, which are way more specific driven than the Ten Commandments are, because the Ten Commandments are very, very vague. They're specific and vague at the same time.
Well, those 42 negative, you see kind of a lot of repetition in them.
You do.
You know, I haven't stolen grain. I haven't stolen God's property.
Right.
I haven't stolen anybody's land. Like there's a little bit of repetition there. So.
Right. But I mean, but maybe the Egyptians kind of thought like, we should probably kind of put like not just grains, but we should also kind of put land too, because because the land is one thing, right? But what's on it is something totally different. So livestock,
Yeah.
maybe you don't have the seeds this year, and I do. I haven't taken your seeds. You know what I'm saying? So not only have I not taken your land, but I haven't taken anything that sits on top of it either.
Right.
Right? As opposed to Yahweh is like, bro, don't stop stealing stuff.
Yeah.
You stealing it.
Yeah, look at the
done with
mountain
it.
with the fire and smoke. And
Oh yeah, like seriously. I mean, God has to make an amazing entrance.
theatrics. Yeah. Pretty intense.
I mean, which I'm just saying. I mean, which kind of leads to, I mean, Hollywood being created by certain individuals. I mean, I totally understand the theatrics. So I'm just saying, yes, it has to be lights, camera, smoke, action, bellow from the mountaintop. I mean, and then he comes down the mountain after being gone for however long. Everybody assumes he's dead, so they're chilling and hanging out and having this big bonfire, which again, a lot of different people speculate on why they were having the fire. Because one individual, one philosophy that I'd read before stated that they were talking about the bull, and apparently at that time it was the ram's time or whatever. So you have to blow the ram's horn, which talk about a totally different age at that point. And then other people just like, it's some of the stuff that we talked about last week or last time, King Solomon, where he was talking about in Ecclesiastics about this ideology that we have about holding on to materialistic possessions.
Well, so the as far as being concerned with property and possessions and everything, I mean that's as far back as agriculture, at least,
Right.
But the thing I'd like to sort of point out between these two, because you have Moses, who presumably knows all about these
The 42 laws, yeah, for sure.
confessions, and then come in to
Right.
present the Ten Commandments. There's a pretty big difference between the two that you might say is introduced with Moses there.
Okay.
That the first 4 commandments, right, are not about living peacefully with your neighbors.
No, it's not.
No, they're about number one, I am your God, and I saved you from slavery, so you owe me this, so you don't have any gods before me, right?
Not at all.
Like so the first thing, I'm going to talk about forgiveness versus forgetfulness here, but the first thing is that here's something you better remember, right? Or look back at the laws, the confessions of Ma'at. You have, frankly, nobody can fulfill all of these conditions, right? Like that's something we all kind of know at this point. Nobody gets all those things correct all the way to death,
Not
right?
at all. Correct.
But it's conceivable that someone might forget doing some of these things, right?
Right.
Well, if you, if you're,
I know where you're going.
yeah, if you're going to get your heart measured against the feather, weighed against the feather, and you're probably better off not remembering all that bad stuff you did. And if you want to avoid doing some bad stuff, you're also probably better off not remembering a lot of the bad stuff other people did to you, because you won't be so mad, maybe,
Right,
But I'm saying it's conceivable that there's more impetus to forget stuff, to forget the bad stuff in the first instance, in the 42 Confessions of Ma'at,
Right.
where with the 10 Commandments, it starts with you will not forget. You will not, right? And what's more, these are upheld by, we go on in the books and a series of sacrifices and things that you have to do to remember all of this. Not to only remember what was done for you, you're brought out of slavery, but also to remember your sins. You got to remember your sins so you can make the sacrifices for them.
Correct.
And you're certainly going to remember them after you see the blood of the, whatever animal, the lamb or the dove, So there's no forgetting here, right?
No.
With the 10 Commandments, there's only forgiving. But I'm going to go talk just a little bit, taking from Alenka Zupancic, just the philosopher we were talking about the other day.
Yeah, buddy.
But if you're forgiven your sin, right, by these sacrifices, you are not ever forgiven for being forgiven, right? The debt of the God that came and brought this salvation and forgiveness to you is always going to be over your head, right?
Always.
So in Christianity, you see it with the cross is always before your face, like that symbol is everywhere, right? You're always reminded of it. You're never alleviated of that debt. Right?
Never.
And so here, that's why I kind of point out, step 1 in the 10 Commandments is, God, brought you out of slavery, out of Egypt, right? You never forget that, right?
Right. And regardless of what type of polytheism you have, it is only me. I could care less who you talk to or who you pray to before. I'm it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
There is nobody before me. There's nobody after me. I'm it. Alpha, Omega, boom.
Yeah, that
That's
jealousy
it.
isn't present in the other one.
Not whatsoever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like, again, if we were to look at this from a, if we were to look at this from a, and take this from like actual real people in life, this is kind of like an Ike Turner, Tina Turner type of situation. It's like you will never forget what I've done for you, period. And if you do, I'm gonna handle you. You know what I mean? So, I mean, and the crazy thing about it, now I don't want to say crazy, I have to say, ironic thing about it is that these ancient laws, these moral laws, or this particular code is mainly in the Abrahamic religions. So you're talking about Judaism, Christianity, as well as Islam, as well, and I'm sure a couple other ones as well that kind of borrowed from. But this is also what created a lot of Western type of laws as well, in a certain code that we still follow to this day or whatever. I mean, a lot of our laws, I mean, the Declaration of Independence, a lot of those things are created based off of those 10 things. But even with that,
I mean, maybe. I mean,
Well-
you gotta think like a lot of these things don't murder. That's present in a lot of places other than the Ten Commandments. So
Well, I
I
mean,
didn't say we
right.
took it from that, but I mean,
Right, but I
something
mean,
where
but,
to-
but at the same time, though, like we said before, I mean, the word murder and kill, I mean, depending on what book you're reading it from or whatever, one thing is murder is the intention to take a life for whatever your reason may be. But you have to kill something in order to eat it. So, I mean, it's not the same. Murder and kill is not the same thing. So, one of the biggest things that in reading all this and kind of going back that I had to kind of try to understand was the definitions that people used then versus what we use today or whatever, especially with that one word. But that one word means a lot. I mean, killing a person, like, I mean, well, it says, do not kill, right? So does that mean that if you're gonna come for me, I can't protect myself? Or is that murder if I know that you're coming for me and I get to you first?
well, no, right. But that distinction, I would say, is probably made, and not just in here, and not just in our laws. Like
Correct.
that's also a pretty universal distinction. All the same societies that prohibit murder also allow warfare, right?
Yes,
It's
they
not
do,
like
don't they?
it's not. It's never been. I don't think that we've ever been too confused about that.
No.
Distinction.
I mean, but at the same time, though, like talking to a lot of pastors, as I have throughout my 45 years of life, you hear that constantly, though. Thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not, all these things or whatever. And it's kind of like, yeah, I hear that, but at the same time, if we actually live by these codes, these laws, right? Most people probably wouldn't be here. You know what I mean? So like, and I'll give you an example. So if the early Christians abide by the ideology, thou shalt not steal, right? And that would mean that certain people wouldn't have went to Africa, stole a bunch of people, and then came back with, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they'd be like, nah, I'm not doing that because it says here not to do this, right?
Yeah.
Stealing another person's land. We wouldn't be here if that same thing didn't occur. So it's kind of like we cherry pick these laws if and when we need them, and then we kind of disregard,
Oh yeah.
if and when we don't. But and I think that one of the biggest reasons why I kind of really wanted to talk about this was because, again, like I said before, the Ten Commandments are very broad, whereas the 42 laws are more specific than that. And now again, they don't cover everything. What would, right? But to know that that these 42 laws are going to help you, and not just you, but help us collectively, then it kind of goes back to the whole idea of how the Ten Commandments would have come into existence in the first place if you already have
Maybe.
something that guides it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then, therefore, again, if Moses was learned in all things Egyptian, especially their wisdom, then there wouldn't have been any slaves in Egypt at that time neither.
Yeah.
So, you know what I
There
mean?
wouldn't have been any slaves?
I mean, well, no, not based on the 42 laws.
Oh.
It wouldn't have been like at all, right? I mean, at least that's how
I
I.
didn't say prohibiting slavery, if that's what you mean.
Well, no, hold on. So I mean, like, hold on, where we at? Hold on.
Well, so, you can say that a lot of these things would be done to slaves, but also presumably Egypt, like a lot of other societies, would have a distinction between what you do to
another person, right?
another
Right,
person in your society versus what you would do to a slave, right? They usually allow you to do things to slaves that they don't allow you to do to their own citizens, right?
So yeah, so I think that what I was looking at more or less was the violence as well as the transgression against certain laws as well, or whatever. You know what I mean? So again, you wouldn't have that particular thing in that region. I mean, at least, and again, I mean, that's based on some other stuff that I'd also read as well, whatever. But again, even stealing people, I have not stolen anything. So if a person doesn't want to leave, that's still theft.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I guess that's how
I agree. I just
I
don't
take it from
know
there.
that they saw it that way.
Good
That's
point.
all I'm saying.
Good point. Yeah, you got a good point on that. I mean, but that's always how I'm looking at like certain things of like, if you know this is wrong in this situation, then why would it not be the same? Why would you not keep that same energy in everything else? You know what I mean? But again, as philosophers, that's how I'm always looking at stuff.
Yeah.
You have to look at it from, I can't just look at it from that one little thing. I have to kind of micro and macro kind of go into it, whereas you break that stuff down, which is why we're here.
Yeah.
Because you always break stuff down.
So, I thought an interesting thing about incurring these debts, again,
debts?
because if you are going to your death and you don't,
Death.
you don't
Okay.
remember having committed adultery, for
No,
example,
not at all.
then hey, you're okay. Your heart's probably okay, but in the Ten Commandments, consider that last one. That you don't covet your neighbor's house or his wife,
Yeah, for sure.
or slaves or ox or donkey or anything else. The thing is, you're not supposed to just not take things. You're supposed to also not want to take things. Well, when does this stop being coveting? Probably when you have the money to buy it. Presumably, you can think about, maybe I want that guy's donkey so I can buy it, or whatever. But
Or seeds.
or seeds, right?
Or seeds.
Yeah, but the thing is, for this, for the Ten Commandments, there's this, not only the jealousy of monotheism, right, which operates by a rule of the least tolerant wins.
Yeah.
And that's a Nassim Taleb idea, I think. If you and I are at a barbecue and we're cooking on the same grill, and you say, I do not do hot dogs, then then presumably I will leave hot dogs off of this grill and we will have something else, right? So the least tolerant sort of makes the rule there a bit, which is kind of how monotheism tends to work. Is like, I don't tolerate other gods. Well, I do. Well, guess who
Right.
wins, right?
Right.
So, but that's kind of old news, I think. But the idea here is that you're something of a debtor from the
Always in debt.
from the first rule.
Yep.
So when you have when you are a debtor, you're supposed to, in this case, that last commandment, first commandment says you are a debtor. Last commandment says think like a debtor. That is, don't think like somebody who has enough money to buy your ox. Now, this might be reaching a little bit if you take it in broader context, but think about like if don't think like somebody who has enough money to buy the other person's ox. That is, don't look at their ox and say, "Man, I want that." Think of yourself more like a debtor who will never have their ox. You know, you're not allowed to covet your neighbor's stuff. Well, and I know a lot of preachers would get on to me about covetousness versus desire to buy things and whatever. I know, but I do want to point out that there is an inherent like debt here, and that you are not only supposed to act right, not murder, commit adultery, steal, bear false witness. You are also supposed to consider yourself in debt to God, right? And how does this continues to operate? I think something as monotheism spread, and we have Christianity, especially through the West, like spread so much that this forever position of the debtor kind of takes hold in a way that expresses itself in our material conditions as well. So being in our society today, even if you are not a Christian, you are very likely, I think, to still act like a debtor in the sense that you're supposed to act as though any job you're given, right, is a blessing to you. Whatever situation you have, it's a blessing to you. You're supposed to be grateful for it. You're not supposed to be looking out and saying, "Man, no, I want something else. I want something different," right? And I think we're kind of taught this. Like I remember in school being taught, you are in the best time to ever be alive.
Be
right?
alive, yep.
Like, never mind that the last century had been more slaughter, more inane, mechanical, horrifying slaughter, than any century before.
Right.
So never mind some of these details, right? You are in the greatest time to ever be alive. Well, I mean, there's some truth to that. Like probably if you're a woman giving birth, you are less likely to die from childbirth now. So it's probably a good thing, in some ways, obviously.
Because
So
it's
it's not like
hand washing.
Yeah, hand washing. Right.
Right.
Like there's something to it,
Right.
It's not just pure nonsense or anything. I don't mean that, but I do mean that you are supposed to, even in the way, even if it's not the best time to ever be alive, you're still supposed to kind of think that it is, or so sort of treat it like it is.
So then would you consider that being the debt that you're here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is like after this goes for so long, this starts to express itself whether God is present or not.
Yep.
That is like whether you adhere to this religion or not, you're still adhering to this basic idea that I am a debtor to something, right? And I owe it to that something, to work hard, give my gratitude, have good work ethic, good ethics, treatment of my neighbors, and everything else.
Right.
I'm not saying that's bad per se. Obviously, I'm not hoping people will just have worse work ethics and start treating their neighbors badly.
Right.
But I have to say it's a fundamental difference from the old way, right? From the way of forgetting.
Right.
And that's a Nietzschean distinction too, between forgetting and forgiving.
Right.
So it is different from the old way. Now, I think there's probably people that will look back and go, "Oh, we can go back to the old way," but that's always naive, right? That's never gonna, you don't do that.
So we're talking about like the concept of the static morality of the system that we were talking about, like on Saturday, like the master versus the slave, the old versus the new.
Well, even not like even if we didn't go that far with it, like even if we're just looking at the basic mechanism of forgetfulness versus forgiveness, like even just going only that far, right?
So one of the things that I used to have this ongoing joke in my head And the joke was, what happens if you, like in your 20s, you were a stripper, right? And then you're 80 years old, you're suffering from Alzheimer's. And for some reason, you hear some song pop on, and you get up and you just start taking it off. And again, you don't know what you're doing,
Okay.
but you do know what you're doing because back in the day, that's what you used to do. Now, nobody else knows about what you did back then except for you because all your friends are gone, family, you never told them. And when we started talking about this, I started thinking like, dude, if a person were going through that, which again, I'm not making light of it by any means, I'm just saying like, we forget everything constantly. We're always forgetting things. And even the things that we think happened, sometimes they didn't happen. What did you think that they did? So at what point do you ever look at yourself subjectively? You know what I mean? Like, is that even possible to stand in front of somebody and say, I haven't done these things, or I have done these things, or I don't even remember doing that to that person. What happens if you did something? Joseph Smith says that, what did he say? He said at 8 years old, you're now a man or a woman, or no, how do you say it? He said once you're 8 years old, you're now justified, well, not justified, but what's the word I'm looking for? Accountable
Oh, okay.
as an adult for your sins. So if I did something when I was 7, we have a problem.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember, especially being at 45 years old.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Again, just one of those things that I consistently think about.
All right.
But so yeah, we'll think about it. We'll talk about it next time,
Sure.
hopefully, if we remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we remember. But actually, no, I think next week I kind of can't wait for next week, man. What we were talking about Saturday about Nietzsche,
Yeah, we might start to get into Nietzsche. I think you might. It's a big topic. So it's
no.
little, you know.
Well, like we said before, we'll just start off with the sayings that people know about.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? We'll start off with that, and then we'll dive deep into that because, like, what you showed me was what you created was like, I mean, like I've been on that just since we talked about it. Like I look at everything from that lens. I will fill you in next time that you see us about what I'm talking about. But until then, my name is Fearless.
I'm Matt.
Matt, and this is a different look. Contact us on the ideal credits, all that good stuff, and we'll see you next time.